The smoke detector was screaming when I walked into the kitchen, but my mother stood, perfectly still by the sink, watching flames curl and blacken inside the metal trash can. I saw the corner of thick cream paper, the kind expensive universities use, disappearing into ash. And my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might be sick right there on the linoleum floor. The logo was still visible for just a second longer. The Crimson Shield of Harvard. University, the institution I'd spent 4 years of high school killing myself to get into, dissolving into nothing while my mother held the fire extinguisher in her hand and chose not to use it. What did you do? My voice came out steady, almost curious, like I was asking about the weather instead of watching my future burn. That calmness surprised even me. But somewhere deep in my brain, a switch had flipped. The part of me that would have screamed or cried or begged had shut down completely, replaced by something cold and calculating that I didn't know I possessed. She turned to look at me, and there was no guilt in her eyes. No remorse. Just a strange mixture of relief and satisfaction that made my skin crawl. I did what I had to do, Cassidy. You're not going to Harvard. You're going to stay here and go to community college like we discussed. We never discussed it, I said, still in that eerily calm voice. You decided it. There's a difference. Don't use that tone with me. She finally grabbed the extinguisher and put out the small fire, the foam hissing as it covered what remained of my acceptance letter. My acceptance letter. The one that had arrived 3 days ago. The one I'd hidden in my room specifically, because I knew she'd try something like this. The one I'd stupidly left on my desk this morning when I went to school, trusting that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't violate my space. I'd been wrong. My younger brother, Felix, appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock. He'd seen everything. He was 14, old enough to understand what this meant, old enough to know that what our mother had just done was unforgivable. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but I shook my head slightly. Not now. Not yet. You had no right, I said. My hands clenched so tight at my sides that my nails dug, crescents into my palms. The pain kept me focused, kept me from flying apart. That letter was addressed to me. That was my future. You burned my future. I saved your future, she corrected, wiping her hands on a dish. Towel like she'd just finished washing dishes instead of destroying my dreams. Harvard would have ruined you. Filled your head with liberal nonsense, taken you away from your family, turned you into someone we don't recognize. You should be thanking me. Thanking you. I repeated the words slowly, tasting how absurd they were. You want me to thank you for burning my college acceptance letter. For keeping you grounded. For keeping you here where you belong. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to that particular tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable, maternal, wise. Cassidy, sweetheart, you're 17. You don't know what you want yet. In a few years, you'll understand that I did this because I love you. And that's when I knew. That's when I understood with perfect clarity that my mother didn't love me. She loved the idea of me that existed in her head. The compliant daughter who would stay. In our small town forever, who would marry someone from church, who would give her grandchildren and never question her authority. She loved that phantom version of me. But the real me? The girl who'd earned a perfect 4.0, who'd scored in the 99th percentile on her SATs, who'd written essays that made her English teacher cry, who'd gotten accepted to Harvard with a full scholarship. That girl terrified her. Because that girl could leave. And leaving meant she couldn't control me anymore. Okay, I said simply. She blinked, clearly expecting more fight. Okay, you're right. I'll go to community college. I'll stay here. The lies came easily, smoothly, and I watched relief wash over her face. She actually believed me. She thought that burning one piece of paper would be enough to trap me here forever. She didn't know I'd already made 3 copies of the acceptance letter. She didn't know I'd scanned it and saved it to the cloud. She didn't know I'd called Harvard's admissions office yesterday and confirmed my spot, explaining that I might have mail issues at home and could they please send any future correspondence to my school counselor instead. She didn't know that for the past 3 months since I'd first suspected she might try. Something like this I'd been planning. Carefully, methodically. Creating backup plans for my backup plans. Opening a secret bank account. Gathering my important documents. Building a network of allies. Teachers, counselors, my best friend's parents. People who would help me leave when the time came. My mother had spent 17 years underestimating me, seeing me as an extension of Herself rather than a person with my own mind, my own dreams, my own fierce determination. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake was assuming that destroying one piece of paper would destroy my spirit. But I wasn't destroyed. I was just getting started. "I'm glad you're being reasonable," she said, actually smiling now. "You'll see, community college is perfectly fine, and you'll be here to help with Felix in the house. It'll be nice having you around." Nice for her, she meant. A live-in babysitter and maid who happened to be her daughter. That's all I'd ever been to her, really. Free labor wrapped in familial obligation. "I'm going to my room," I said, heading for the stairs. "Cassidy?" Her voice stopped me. "I hope you know I did this because I love you." I turned back, meeting her eyes with that same unnerving calm. "If this is what your love looks like, I'd hate to see your hate." The words hung in, the air between us sharp and clean as a blade. I saw her flinch, saw the first hint of uncertainty cross her face. Good. She should be uncertain. She should be very uncertain about what she'd just unleashed, because here's what she didn't understand. You can't cage a bird and expect it to forget how to fly. You can only make it more determined to soar the moment it finds an opening. And I was about to rip the cage door right off its hinges. I locked my bedroom door and sat on my bed, hands shaking now that I was alone. The calm facade I'd maintained downstairs cracked, and I pressed my face into my pillow to muffle the sound of my crying. Not because I was sad, though I was, but because I was so angry I could barely breathe. Rage like I'd never felt before burned through my veins, hot and caustic and clarifying. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Quinn. "Still on for tonight? My parents said you can stay over if you need to escape the mothership." I typed back. She burned my Harvard letter. I watched her do it. 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "What? Come over now. I'm telling my mom. We're calling someone." "No, don't. I'm okay. I'll explain tonight." I stared at the ceiling, forcing myself to think clearly. The acceptance letter was gone, but that was just symbolic. The real acceptance existed in Harvard's computer system, in their records, in the email. Confirmation I'd screenshot and backed up in 3 different places. My mother had destroyed a piece of paper, nothing more. She'd made a grand gesture that, in the end, would mean absolutely nothing. But she didn't know that yet. And I was going to use her ignorance against her. My door handle rattled. "Cassidy, can I come in?" Felix's voice, quiet and worried. I unlocked the door and let him in, locking it again behind him. He looked at me with those same green eyes we'd both inherited from our father. The father, who'd left when I was 10 and Felix was 7, unable to handle our mother's increasing control and paranoia. He sent child support checks, but nothing else. No calls, no visits. He'd escaped and left us behind to deal with her alone. "Are you really going to stay here?" Felix asked, sitting on the edge of my bed. "Are you really going to give up Harvard?" "No," I said quietly, "but she doesn't need to know that." Understanding dawned on his face. At 14, he was sharper than most adults gave him credit for. He'd had to be growing up in this house. "You're planning something." "I'm planning a lot of things. But Felix, I need you to trust me and not say anything. Can you do that? Will you take me with you?" The question came out small, vulnerable. "When you leave?" My heart broke a little. "You're still in middle school. I can't." "I know. But eventually, when I'm older?" He looked at me with desperate hope. "Promise you'll come back for me. Promise you won't leave me here with her forever." I pulled him into a hug. "I promise. The second you're 18, you can come live with me wherever I am. I'll help you with college applications. I'll help you leave too. But right now, I need you to play along. Act normal. Act like I'm staying. Can you do that?" He nodded against my shoulder. "I can act. I've been acting like this family is normal for years." The truth of that statement sat heavy between us. We'd both been performing, pretending, surviving in a house where love was conditional and control was absolute. But while Felix still had 4 more years of this ahead of him, I was so close to freedom I could taste it. 3 more months until graduation. 3 more months until I turned 18. 3 more months until I could legally leave without her being able to stop me. I'd already been counting down. But now the countdown felt different, more urgent, more necessary. After Felix left, I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder I'd labeled college stuff. Innocuous enough that if my mother snooped, she'd think it was just school. Research. Inside was a hidden subfolder, password protected, where I'd kept all my real plans. First document, timeline to freedom. I'd created it 2 months ago after she'd first told me I didn't need to apply to out-of-state schools. That conversation had been the wake-up call. I'd realized then that my mother wasn't going to support my dreams. She was going to actively sabotage them. So I'd started planning. I'd applied to Harvard in secret, using my school counselor's office as my mailing address. I'd applied for financial aid and scholarships without telling her. I'd researched student loans. I'd figured out how much money I'd need to move across the country and start my life. Second document. Allies. A list of people who knew the truth and had agreed to help. Quinn's parents, who'd offered to let me stay with them the summer after graduation. My school counselor, Mrs. Hernandez, who'd written me recommendation letters and helped me navigate the application process. My English teacher, Mr. Wallace, who'd given me a key to his classroom so I had a place to work on applications when I couldn't risk doing it at home. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's younger sister who lived in Boston and who'd offered me a place to crash when I first arrived at Harvard. My mother had no idea how many people had witnessed her controlling behavior over the years and quietly offered to help me escape it. She thought her authority was absolute. She thought everyone agreed with her parenting style. She was wrong. Third document, evidence. This was the one I'd hoped I'd never need, but I'd started collecting it anyway. Screenshots of texts where she'd said manipulative things. Voice memos I'd secretly recorded of her tirades. Photos of my room after she'd torn it apart looking for evidence I was planning to leave. A detailed journal of every incident, dated and time-stamped. I didn't know exactly what I'd do with this evidence, but some instinct told me to keep it, to document everything. Because people like my mother, people who believed they were always right, always justified, they never saw consequences coming. They never imagined that their victims might fight back. But I was fighting back. Quietly, strategically, in ways she wouldn't understand until it was too late. I opened a new document and titled it, The Invitation. Then I started typing. My mother wanted to keep me small, keep me local, keep me under her control, so I would let her think she'd won. I'd play the compliant daughter for 3 more months. I'd go through the motions of applying to community college. I'd be polite and agreeable and everything she'd ever wanted. And then, on graduation day, when I walked across that stage in front of everyone we knew, our family, our neighbors, our church community, everyone who thought she was such a devoted mother, I would announce my full scholarship to Harvard. I would thank every person who'd helped me get there. I would expose exactly what she'd done and why I was leaving. I would invite her to my college graduation 4 years later. Not because I wanted her there, but because I wanted her to know exactly what she'd tried to destroy and failed. I wanted her to see me succeed despite her. Not because of her. That was the revenge I was planning. Not violence, not cruelty, just truth. Just me, standing in front of everyone, claiming my own life. The invitation would be poetic, ironic, devastating. Because what could hurt a controlling parent more than the public knowledge that they'd lost control? What could wound someone who craved respect more than everyone knowing they'd tried to? Sabotage their own daughter's dreams? I smiled at my laptop screen, feeling something fierce and wild and unstoppable rising in my chest. My mother had lit a fire today. She'd thought she was burning my future, but all she'd done was ignite something in me that couldn't be put out. She'd made the mistake of underestimating me, and I was going to make sure she never made that mistake again. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. My mother was making breakfast. Pancakes, my supposed favorite, which felt like a peace, offering or maybe a celebration of her victory. I sat at the table and accepted the plate she put in front of me without argument. "I'm glad you've come to your senses," she said, pouring herself coffee. "This is what's best for everyone." "Mm-hmm," I responded, cutting into the pancakes with mechanical precision. They tasted like cardboard, but I ate them anyway. Fuel. That's all food was now. Fuel to get me through the next 3 months. Felix watched me carefully from across the table, uncertainty in his eyes. He was trying to figure out if I'd actually given up or if this was part of the plan. I gave him the tiniest nod. "Trust me, I'll need to start looking at community college applications," I said. Mrs. Hernandez said she'd help me figure out class schedules. My mother's face brightened. "That's wonderful. You know, community college is nothing to be ashamed of. Lots of successful people started there." I bit my tongue hard enough to taste blood. She knew nothing about what I'd worked for. what I'd sacrificed. She'd never asked about my dreams, my goals, my plans. She'd just assumed I'd follow the path she'd laid out for me. And when I dared to want something different, she'd literally burned it. I'll need my birth certificate and social security card for the applications, I said casually. Can I get those from the safe? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Why do you need those? For the FAFSA, for financial aid applications. Mrs. Hernandez said I'd need them. All of this was technically true, even if I was planning to use those documents for Harvard instead of community college. I'll get them for you, she said. Not I'll show you where they are or here's the combination. She was going to get them herself, maintaining control even in this tiny thing. Okay, I said agreeably. Inside, I was already recalculating. I'd need to get those documents myself eventually. But I could wait. I could be patient. At school, I headed straight to Mrs. Hernandez's office. She looked up from her computer when I walked in, and her face immediately shifted to concern when she saw my expression. What happened? She burned my acceptance letter. I came home yesterday, and she was literally burning it in the trash can. Mrs. Hernandez's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Shock, anger, determination. Cassidy, do you want to file a report? That's destruction of property at minimum. And given that it was your mail— No, I interrupted. No police. That would just make things worse. I just need to make sure Harvard knows what's going on. Can you email them? Confirm that any important documents should come here instead of my house? Already done. I emailed them yesterday after you told me you were worried about mail security. She pulled up the email on her screen. They've flagged your account. Everything will come here or go to your portal. Your acceptance is secure, Cassidy. She can't take it away. The relief that washed over me was almost painful. Thank you. Have you thought about where you'll stay this summer? You can't stay in that house for 3 more months, not after this. Quinn's parents offered, and my Aunt Patricia in Boston said I could come early if I need to. Good. Now, let's talk about what you need to do in the next 3 months to make sure you can leave cleanly. She pulled out a notebook. First, documents. You need your birth certificate, social security card, passport if you have one, any medical records, banking information. She keeps most of that in a safe. I don't know the combination. Then we'll help you get copies. I can request your birth certificate from the county registrar. Social security card can be replaced. Medical records can be transferred. You don't need her permission for any of that. You're almost 18. We spent the next hour creating a detailed plan. Every document I'd need. Every account I'd need to open. Every step between now and August when I'd leave for Harvard. Mrs. Hernandez had clearly been through this before with other students escaping controlling parents. She knew all the pitfalls, all the tricks, all the ways parents tried to maintain control, even after their children became legal adults. One more thing, I said as I was leaving. Graduation day. Can you make sure I get to speak? Even just a few minutes? She studied my face. What are you planning? Just to tell the truth. The truth can be dangerous, Cassidy. So can lies. She's been lying about who we are, who I am, for years. Everyone thinks she's this devoted mom, making sacrifices for her kids. They don't know she destroyed my college acceptance to keep me trapped here. I think they deserve to know the truth before they praise her at graduation. Mrs. Hernandez was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. You're valedictorian. You get to speak. What you say is up to you. But Cassidy, make sure you're ready for the fallout. Because there will be fallout. I know, but I'll be leaving right after. She can't touch me once I'm gone. And Felix? I hesitated. That was the complication. He knows the plan. He's going to stay quiet, act normal. I'll come back for him when he's older. That's a long time to leave him there alone. I know. The guilt sat heavy in my stomach, but I can't save both of us right now. I can barely save myself. She reached out and squeezed my hand. You're doing the best you can with an impossible situation. Just don't forget that you're 17. You're strong and smart, but you're still a kid dealing with adult problems. Let the adults in your life help you. I nodded, but inside I was thinking, I stopped being a kid the day I realized my mother saw me as property instead of a person. I stopped being a kid the day I started planning my escape. I stopped being a kid yesterday when I watched my future burn and chose revenge over despair. That night at dinner, my mother was in an unusually good mood. She'd spent the day rearranging my future in her head, probably imagining me living at home forever, getting some easy job, maybe marrying someone local who she approved of. The fantasy made her magnanimous. "We should celebrate," she announced. "This weekend we'll have a family dinner. Invite Grandma and Uncle Tim. We can announce your decision to stay local for college." "Great," I said with manufactured enthusiasm. "That sounds really nice." Felix kicked me under the table. A warning or a question, I couldn't tell. I ignored it. "You know," my mother continued, "I think this might be the best thing that ever happened to you. Harvard would have been too much pressure. Too competitive. You would have been miserable." The audacity of that statement almost broke my calm. She'd rewritten history so thoroughly in her own mind that she actually believed she'd saved me from something terrible instead of destroying something precious. That's what narcissists did. They rewrote reality to make themselves the hero of every story. But I was going to rewrite this story my way. And in my version, she was the villain she'd always been. Not because I was bitter or cruel, but because it was simply the truth. I excused myself after dinner and went to my room, pulling out my phone to text Aunt Patricia. "Still okay if I come to Boston in August? Situation here just got worse." Her reply came quickly. "Always okay. You have a place here as long as you need it. Do you need me to come get you sooner?" "No, I have a plan. But thank you. Your mother called me yesterday. Told me she'd burned your acceptance letter. Wanted me to congratulate her on keeping you grounded. I told her she'd made a terrible mistake. What did she say? That I don't understand because I don't have children. That I'm too liberal. That I've always been jealous of her family. The usual nonsense. But Cassidy, I want you to know, I'm proud of you. So proud. And I can't wait to see you walk across that stage at Harvard in 4 years. I'll be there, even if she isn't." I felt tears burning in my eyes. "Thank you. That means everything. She's going to try to stop you. You know that, right? When she realizes you're actually leaving, she'll pull out every manipulation tactic she has. Be ready for it." I am ready. I've been getting ready my whole life. I set my phone down and opened my laptop again, pulling up the speech I'd started writing. For graduation. It needed to be perfect. Specific enough to make the truth clear, but general enough that she couldn't claim I was lying. Emotional enough to be compelling, but controlled enough to show I wasn't just a rebellious teenager throwing a tantrum. It needed to be devastating. And it needed to be airtight. I wrote for hours, deleting and rewriting, honing each sentence until it was sharp as a scalpel. When I finally finished, I read it aloud in a whisper, imagining myself on that stage in 3 months. My mother sitting in the audience with no idea what was coming. When I was 10 years old, my mother told me that dreams were dangerous, that wanting too much would only lead to disappointment. For years, I believed her. I made myself smaller, quieter, more manageable. I learned to want only what she wanted for me. But somewhere along the way, I realized something. Dreams aren't dangerous. The people who try to kill them are. I smiled at the screen. It was good. It was really good. And in 3 months, everyone would hear it. But first, I had to survive 3 more months of pretending. 3 more months of playing the obedient daughter while quietly dismantling every chain she'd wrapped around me. 3 more months until freedom. I could do that. I could do anything for 3 more months. The family dinner that weekend was exactly as horrible as I'd anticipated. My grandmother sat at the head of the table, nodding approvingly as my mother spun the story of my decision to stay local for college. Uncle Tim, my mother's older brother, congratulated me on being sensible and practical. My younger cousin Ashley, a sophomore in high school who worshipped my mother for reasons I'd never understand, told me she thought I was making the right choice. I sat through it all with a pleasant smile plastered on my face, agreeing when expected, laughing at the right moments, playing the role of dutiful daughter so convincingly that even I almost believed it. Felix, sitting across from me, barely touched his food. He knew the truth, and watching me perform this charade was clearly making him uncomfortable. At one point, when my mother was in the kitchen getting dessert, my grandmother leaned over to me. "Your mother tells me you were very upset about Harvard at first," she said quietly, "but I'm glad you've come around. Family is more important than prestige. Besides, girls who go too far away for college often end up losing their values, their morals. Your mother is protecting you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I nodded and said, "You're probably right, Grandma." She patted my hand, satisfied. These people, my family, they all believed the same lie. That control was love. That limitation was protection. That keeping someone small was the same as keeping them safe. They'd built an entire ideology around crushing the spirits of their children, and they called it good parenting. But I wasn't going to argue with them. I wasn't going to waste my breath trying to change minds that had been calcified by decades of similar treatment. I was just going to leave. And maybe, just maybe, my success would crack their worldview open a little. Or maybe it wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't my job to save them from their own narrow thinking. After dinner, Uncle Tim cornered me in the hallway. "Your mom told me what happened with the letter," he said, and my stomach dropped. "I want you to know I think she did the right thing. Sometimes parents have to make hard choices to protect their kids from making mistakes. Burning someone's college acceptance letter is protecting them?" I asked, unable to keep the edge completely out of my voice. If that college is the wrong choice, yes. Harvard would have filled your head with liberal propaganda. It would have taken you away from your family, your faith, your values. Your mother saw that danger and eliminated it. That takes courage. I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. He wasn't just enabling my mother's behavior. He genuinely agreed with it. This wasn't just about her being controlling. This was systemic. This was a whole family that believed children were property. That independent thought was dangerous, that anything outside their narrow worldview was a threat. "I see," I said carefully. "Thank you for sharing your perspective." He nodded, completely missing the ice in my tone. "You'll understand when you're older. When you have kids of your own, you'll want to protect them too. I will never have kids if it means becoming like you," I thought. But I just smiled and excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door and leaning against the sink, breathing deeply to calm my racing heart. My phone buzzed. "Quinn, how's the dinner from hell?" Exactly as hellish as expected. "They all think she did the right thing. They all think I should be grateful. That's insane. Your family is insane. I know. But only 3 more months. Then I never have to sit through one of these dinners again. My mom asked if you want to come over after. She says you can stay the night if you need to get away. I'll be there in an hour. Thank you." When I came back to the dining room, my mother was showing everyone photos on her phone. Pictures of me as a baby, as a little girl, all smiling and cute and perfectly under her control. "My sweet Cassidy," she was saying. "Always such a good girl, so obedient, so respectful. I'm so proud of the young woman she's become." The irony was suffocating. She was proud of a version of me that didn't exist. Proud of an illusion she'd created in her own mind. The real me. The one who'd worked herself to exhaustion to get into Harvard, who was secretly planning her escape, who was currently plotting the most satisfying revenge she could imagine. That version of me she didn't even know existed. And that was her weakness. That blindness. That absolute certainty that she knew me, controlled me, owned me. She was so convinced of her own authority that she couldn't see the rebellion brewing, right under her nose. I was counting on that blindness. I was weaponizing it. "Cassidy, come look at these photos," my mother called. "Remember this day? You were 7. We went to the zoo. You were so happy." I walked over and looked at the photo. I remembered that day. I remembered being excited about seeing the elephants. I remembered my mother spending the entire trip criticizing how I walked, how I talked, how I interacted with other children. I remembered crying in the car on the way home because nothing I did was ever good enough. I remembered her telling me I was ungrateful for not enjoying the trip more. But in the photo, I was smiling, because even at 7, I'd already learned to perform happiness for her camera, to give her the image she wanted, regardless of what I actually felt. "I remember," I said. "It was a nice day." She beamed at me, and everyone made approving noises about what a lovely childhood I'd had. The gap between their perception and my reality was so vast it was almost funny. Almost. When I finally escaped to Quinn's house later that night, I felt like I could breathe again. Quinn's parents greeted me with warm hugs and no questions. Just acceptance. They didn't need to know the details to understand that my home life was difficult. They'd seen enough over the years to draw their own conclusions. "You're always welcome here," Quinn's mom, Teresa, told me. "Always. Whether it's for a night or for the whole summer." "Thank you," I said, and meant it with my whole heart. These people were showing me what real parental love looked like. Supportive, respectful, empowering. The contrast with my own mother couldn't have been more stark. In Quinn's room, I finally let my guard down completely. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending, I admitted. Every time she talks about how proud she is of me, I want to scream. She's proud of someone who doesn't exist. 3 more months, Quinn reminded me. You can do anything for 3 more months, and then you'll be free, and you'll never have to pretend again. What if she tries to stop me from leaving? What if she physically won't let me go? Then we call the police. You'll be 18. She can't legally keep you there. And honestly, Cass, I think the public humiliation at graduation will break her so thoroughly that she won't even try to stop you. She'll be too busy dealing with the fallout. I thought about that. Quinn was probably right. My mother's power came from her carefully maintained image of being a perfect mother. Once that image was shattered, once everyone knew what she'd really done, she'd be too, focused on damage control to chase after me. That was the genius of my plan, really. I wasn't just escaping. I was making it impossible for her to come after me without everyone asking uncomfortable questions. I was burning her bridges for her while building my own somewhere she couldn't reach. Tell me about the speech again, Quinn said. What are you going to say? I pulled out my phone and opened the document, reading it aloud. Quinn listened with increasingly wide eyes, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Damn, she finally said. That's brutal. That's perfect. But Cass, you know she's going to lose her mind, right? In front of everyone? I know. That's the point. I want everyone to see who she really is. I want everyone to see what happens when someone challenges her control. I want to take away her ability to pretend she's this devoted, sacrificial mother. And you're sure you want to do it publicly? You could just leave quietly. I could. But then she'd spin the story. She'd tell everyone I abandoned the family, that I was selfish and ungrateful. She'd make herself the victim. This way, the truth comes out first. This way, no one can deny what she did. What about Felix? Have you thought about how this will affect him? I had thought about it. Constantly. It was the one thing that made me hesitate. He'll have to deal with the fallout for the next 4 years. But he knows the plan. He knows I'm coming back for him when he's 18. And honestly, maybe watching me stand up to her will give him permission to set his own boundaries. Maybe it'll be harder for her to control him once everyone knows what she's capable of. Or maybe she'll crack down harder on him since she lost control of you. That possibility haunted me, I know. But Quinn, I can't save both of us right now. I can barely save myself. And if I don't leave now, I might never leave. She'll find new ways to trap me here. This is my one chance. I know. I worry about you. Both of you. Your family is really messed up, and you've been carrying that weight alone for so long. Not alone. I have you. I have your parents. I have Mrs. Hernandez and Mr. Wallace and Aunt Patricia. I have people who actually see me. That's more than a lot of people have. We stayed up late talking, planning, refining. Quinn helped me think through every possible way my mother might retaliate, and we came up with contingency plans for each one. By the time we fell asleep, I felt more prepared than I had in weeks. But I also felt something else. Guilt. Guilt about Felix. Guilt about leaving him behind. Guilt about the fact that my freedom would come at the cost of his increased isolation. I pushed the guilt down. I had to, because guilt would paralyze me. And I couldn't afford to be paralyzed. I had 3 more months of performing, planning, preparing. 3 more months until I could stop being who my mother wanted me to be and start being who I actually was. 3 more months until I sent that invitation. Not just to my college graduation, but to the life I was going to build without her permission, without her approval, without her at all. She tried to burn my future. I was going to rise from those ashes and show her exactly what fire really looked like. The weeks crawled by with excruciating slowness. I perfected my act. The compliant daughter, the grateful child who'd seen the error of her ambitious ways. I filled out community college applications under my mother's watchful eye. Applications I had no intention of submitting. I attended church youth group and smiled politely when the youth pastor talked about honoring your parents in all things. I helped with dinner and cleaned the house and played the role so convincingly that even Felix sometimes looked at me with concern, wondering if I'd actually given up. But at school, I was someone else entirely. I met with Mrs. Hernandez weekly to finalize my plans. We contacted Harvard's financial aid office to ensure everything was in order. We arranged for my transcripts to be sent directly. We created a paper trail that existed entirely outside my mother's knowledge or control. You're doing remarkably well, Mrs. Hernandez told me during one of our meetings. Maintaining this double life can't be easy. It's exhausting, I admitted. Sometimes I forget which version of myself I'm supposed to be. I'll start to say something real at home and have to catch myself. That's dissociation. It's a survival mechanism. Your brain is compartmentalizing to protect you. She leaned forward, her expression serious. But Cassidy, when this is all over, when you're safely at Harvard, I want you to consider therapy. You've been through trauma, your mother's behavior, the control, the manipulation, the destruction of your acceptance letter. That's emotional abuse. You're going to need help processing all of this. I know, I said quietly. Aunt Patricia already found me a therapist in Boston. I have an appointment scheduled for September. Good, because here's what I've seen happen to kids who escape situations like yours. They get to college, they're finally free, and then everything they've been holding together falls apart. The pressure they've been under for years releases all at once, and it can be overwhelming. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to prepare you. Freedom is wonderful, but it's also terrifying when you've never had it before. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have moments where you doubt yourself. You might even feel guilty for leaving. That's all normal, but you need support systems in place to help you through it. I appreciated her honesty. Mrs. Hernandez had been the closest thing to a real mother figure I'd had in years. She saw me, really saw me in ways my own mother never had. She recognized my intelligence without feeling threatened by it. She celebrated my achievements instead of trying to diminish them. She was everything I wished my mother could have been. Can I ask you something? I said. Why are you helping me like this? You've gone above and beyond what a school counselor normally does. She was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because I was you, 25 years ago. Different details, same story. Controlling mother who couldn't stand the thought of me leaving. I got accepted to Berkeley with a full scholarship. She hid the acceptance packet, told me it never arrived. I only found out months later when I called the admissions office directly. What did you do? I left anyway. Deferred for a year, worked 3 jobs, saved every penny, and left the day I turned 18. Didn't tell her where I was going. Just disappeared. She smiled sadly. We didn't speak for 5 years. When we finally reconnected, she'd rewritten history in her mind, convinced herself that I'd left because I was rebellious and ungrateful, not because she'd tried to trap me. We have a relationship now, but it's superficial. We talk about weather and holidays and nothing real. Do you regret it? Leaving the way you did? I regret the pain it caused. I regret that we can't have the mother-daughter relationship I always wanted. But do I regret leaving? Never. Not for a single second. Berkeley changed my life. It gave me opportunities I never would have had if I'd stayed. It gave me myself. She met my eyes. That's what I see when I look at you, Cassidy. I see a girl who's about to get herself back, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens. I left that meeting, feeling both strengthened and sorrowful. Strengthened because I knew I wasn't alone in this experience. Sorrowful because apparently this pattern, parents who loved control more than their children, was common enough that there was a whole subset of kids like me, planning escapes and building secret lives. At home that night, my mother was in an unusually chatty mood. She'd been to lunch with some of her church friends, and they'd all been discussing their children's post-graduation plans. Susan's daughter is going to state school, she told me while making dinner, living at home to save money. And Martha's son is joining his father's business. Everyone thinks it's so wonderful that you're staying local too. You're setting a good example for the other kids. Glad I could help, I said, stirring the pasta sauce she'd asked me to watch. You know, I was thinking, maybe you could get a part-time job this summer. Something at the church or the library. Start saving money for community college. Sure, that sounds good. And maybe we could look at getting you a car. Nothing fancy, just something reliable so you can drive to class. We could share it. You'd use it during the day and I'd have it for errands. I recognized this tactic. She was trying to entangle me further, to create more dependencies that would make leaving harder. A shared car meant she'd always have a say in where I went. A job at the church meant more involvement in her social sphere, more eyes watching me, more people who'd report back to her if I did anything concerning. That's really generous, I said, but let me finish out this semester first. I want to focus on graduation and finals. Of course, but I just want you to know that I'm thinking about your future. I want you to have everything you need. Everything except freedom, I thought. Everything except autonomy. Everything except the ability to make my own choices. Felix came home from basketball practice and immediately picked up on the tension. He'd gotten better at reading the room, at understanding the subtext beneath our family's conversations. At dinner, when my mother brought up the car idea again, he jumped in. Cass should probably wait until after graduation to make any big decisions, he said. Finals are going to be brutal. She needs to focus. My mother looked at him with surprise. Felix rarely spoke up during her planning sessions. I suppose that's sensible, but we should at least start looking at options. Maybe in June, I suggested, after graduation, when things settle down. She agreed, satisfied that she'd planted the seed, but I knew her well enough to know she'd bring it up again and again, slowly increasing, the pressure until I felt obligated to accept. That's how she worked. Small concessions that built into larger obligations that eventually became chains. But I wasn't going to be around long enough for those chains to tighten. In my bedroom that night, I looked at my calendar. Exactly 10 weeks until graduation. 10 weeks until I stood on that stage and told the truth. 10 weeks until I walked off that stage and into a car driven by Quinn's dad who'd agreed to take me straight to Aunt Patricia's house before my mother could intercept me. I'd planned every detail. My important documents were already at Quinn's house. I'd smuggled them out one by one over the past month. My clothes were slowly being moved there too. One backpack at a time. Everything I couldn't replace was already gone from my room. What remained were just props. The set dressing for the performance I was giving. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Patricia. Harvard orientation is June 20th, 22. I already got you registered. You'll stay with me until the dorms open in August. All taken care of. Thank you. For everything. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd figure it out. You're resourceful. But I'm glad you don't have to figure it out alone. Your mother called me again today, by the way. Wanted to tell me how well you're doing, how you've matured and made the right choice. What did you tell her? I told her I was proud of you. Which is true, just not for the reasons she thinks. I smiled at my phone. Aunt Patricia was the family rebel. The one who'd left our small town decades ago, who'd never married or had kids, who'd built a successful career as a professor at Boston University. My mother viewed her with a mixture of envy and disdain. She was simultaneously jealous of Patricia's freedom and dismissive of her choices. But Patricia had always been kind to me. She'd sent me books my mother wouldn't have approved of. She'd told me stories about the world beyond our town. She'd shown me, just by existing, that there were other ways to live. That women didn't have to be wives and mothers to have value. That independence wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously. Cassidy? This is your dad. I heard from Patricia what your mother did. I'm sorry. I should have been there to protect you from her. I should have fought harder for custody when I left. I just want you to know that I'm proud of you for getting into Harvard. And if you need anything, money, help, anything, please ask. I owe you that much. I stared at the message for a long time. Emotions I'd buried for years surging up. Anger, hurt, confusion. My father had left when I was 10, unable to handle my mother's increasingly erratic behavior. He'd tried for a while to maintain a relationship with Felix and me, but my mother had made it nearly impossible. She'd poisoned every visit with drama, had weaponized us against him, had made it clear that maintaining contact with him was a betrayal of her. Eventually, he'd given up. The calls had stopped. The visits had ended. He'd sent child support checks, but nothing else. And I'd spent 7 years believing he'd abandoned us because we weren't worth fighting for. But Patricia's version of events had always been different. She'd told me that my father had wanted to fight for custody, that he'd tried, but that his lawyer had advised him he'd lose, that courts in our conservative county almost always sided with mothers, that he'd had to choose between a legal battle that would bankrupt him and probably fail, or stepping back and hoping we'd reach out when we were older. I didn't know which version was true. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe the truth was somewhere in the complicated middle where most family stories lived. I typed back. Thank you. I appreciate the offer. Right now, I'm okay. Patricia is helping, but it means a lot to know you're there. His response came quickly. I'll be at your college graduation. 4 years from now. Patricia already told me when and where. I'll be there, Cassidy, I promise. I set my phone down, feeling shaken. In 10 weeks, I was going to blow up my relationship with my mother. But apparently, I might be rebuilding one with my father. Life was strange like that. Some doors closing while others opened, some bridges burning, while others were slowly, tentatively being constructed. Felix knocked on my door and came in without waiting for a response. Was that Dad? How did you know? I could tell by your face. You look confused and angry and sad all at once. That's the expression you always get when you think about him. He sat on my bed. What did he say? I showed him the messages. Felix read them carefully, his expression unreadable. Do you think he means it? He asked. About being there? About helping? I don't know, but I think he's trying. That's more than he's done in 7 years. Mom always said he didn't care about us, that he left because he was selfish and couldn't handle responsibility. Mom says a lot, of things that aren't true. I reminded him gently. She rewrites history to make herself look better. You know that. I know, but it's hard to know what's real sometimes. She's been telling us stories about Dad for so long that I don't know which parts are true and which parts she made up. That's the thing about people like Mom, I said. They don't just lie to you. They make you doubt your own perception of reality. They gaslight you until you can't trust your own memories. But Felix, here's what I know for sure. Dad left her, not us. He couldn't handle being married to someone that controlling. That doesn't mean he didn't love us. But he stopped calling. He stopped visiting. Because she made it impossible. Every time he tried to see us, she'd create drama. She'd accuse him of things. She'd make us feel guilty for wanting to spend time with him. Eventually, he couldn't fight anymore. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable. Felix was quiet for a long time. When you leave, he finally said, she's going to try to do the same thing to me about you. She's going to tell me you abandoned us, that you're selfish, that you chose some fancy college over your family. Yeah, she probably will. But I'll know the truth, because I was there. I saw her burn your letter. I saw you plan your escape. I'll know that you didn't abandon us. You saved yourself. And someday, you'll help me save myself too. I pulled him into a hug. 4 more years and then you're out. I promise. I'll come back for you. What if she does something to stop you from coming back? What if she finds a way to cut you off completely? She can't. Once I'm 18 and gone, she has no legal power over me. And she won't be able to manipulate me anymore because I won't be here to manipulate. The only person she'll be able to control is you, and you're stronger than she thinks you are. You've been watching me plan this for months. You know the tactics. You know the warning signs. You can protect yourself. I don't know if I'm as strong as you. You are. You're just younger. By the time you're my age, you'll be even stronger because you'll have seen someone escape. You'll know it's possible. After Felix left, I sat alone in my room and thought about legacy. My mother was trying to build a legacy of control. Children who stayed close, who obeyed, who never questioned her authority. But the legacy she was actually building was one of rebellion. I was leaving, and watching me leave would give Felix permission to leave too when his time came. Her attempts to bind us to her were actually pushing us away. That was the fundamental flaw in her approach. You can't force someone to love you. You can't manipulate someone into wanting to stay. You can only create an environment where they want to leave, and then act surprised when they do. I opened my laptop and added another paragraph to my graduation speech. My mother taught me many things, though not always the lessons she intended. She taught me that love shouldn't feel like a cage. She taught me that family shouldn't require you to sacrifice your dreams. She taught me that when someone claims to be protecting you, but is actually controlling, they don't deserve your loyalty. They deserve your escape. It was harsh. It was direct. It was exactly what I needed to say. In 10 weeks, I would say it. And my mother would finally understand what she'd created. Not a grateful, obedient daughter, but a survivor who'd learned to fight back with truth as her weapon. Spring turned into early summer. School days counted down with agonizing slowness. My mother grew increasingly comfortable with her victory, which made the performance easier in some ways. She'd stopped watching me quite as closely. Convinced that her control was secure, I used that false security to my advantage, moving more of my things to Quinn's house, finalizing every detail of my escape plan. Prom came and went. I didn't go. Partially because I'd never had time to date while managing my schoolwork and my home life, and partially because spending money on a dress felt wasteful when I was hoarding every dollar for my escape fund. My mother seemed pleased that I'd skipped it. Proms are overrated anyway, she said. Just an excuse for kids to make bad decisions. What she meant was, I'm glad you're not having experiences outside my control. I'm glad you're staying small and isolated. I'm glad you're not building connections that might pull you away from me. But I didn't argue. I just nodded and helped her make dinner, playing my role perfectly. The week before graduation, my mother took me shopping for a dress for the ceremony. She wanted me to wear white. Pure and innocent, she called it. I wanted navy blue, something that felt more serious and adult. We compromised on cream, which satisfied her need for light colors while giving me something that felt less like a costume. In the dressing room, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. Physically, I looked the same. Same dark hair, same serious eyes, same sharp features I'd inherited from my father. But something in my expression had changed. There was a hardness there now, a determination that hadn't existed a year ago. I looked like someone who'd been through fire and decided to become the flame. That's perfect, my mother said when I showed her the dress. You look beautiful, my perfect daughter. Not perfect, I thought. Just perfectly acting. There's a difference. At school, the energy was electric as seniors counted down to graduation. Everyone was making plans. College, gap years, jobs, travel. I listened to my classmates talk about their futures with a mix of envy and anticipation. They got to be excited openly. They got to share their plans without fear. Their parents might be anxious about them leaving, but that anxiety came from love, not control. My closest friends, Quinn, Marcus, and Jade, knew the truth about my situation, but we'd been careful not to discuss it where anyone might overhear. In our small town, gossip traveled fast, and I couldn't risk word getting back to my mother before graduation day. Are you nervous about the speech? Marcus asked during lunch one day. He was salutatorian, giving the speech right before mine. His speech was about gratitude and optimism. Sweet and earnest and everything a graduation speech was supposed to be. Mine was a tactical nuclear bomb. Terrified, I admitted, but also ready. I've been ready for months. Your mom still has no idea? None. She thinks I'm going to thank her and my family for their support. She's expecting me to talk about staying local in community college and how grateful I am for her guidance. Jade shook her head. She's going to lose it. Like, completely lose it. You know that, right? That's part of the plan. I want everyone to see her reaction. I want them to see what happens when someone tells the truth about her. It'll prove everything I say. That's kind of brilliant, Marcus said, and also kind of terrifying. You're scarier than people think, Cass. Good. I've spent 17 years being underestimated. I'm done with that. Quinn grabbed my hand across the table. We'll be right there. My parents, me, my brother. We'll be in the audience, and we'll leave with you the second the ceremony ends. You won't have to face her alone. And if she tries to physically stop you? Jade asked. What's the plan? Then Mrs. Hernandez calls the police. I'll be 18 by then. Legally an adult. She can't force me to stay. And honestly, I don't think she will try to physically stop me. I think she'll be too shocked, too focused on damage control. The last thing she'll want is a scene that makes her look even worse. You've thought of everything, Marcus said, impressed. I've had to. She's been controlling every aspect of my life for 17 years. You don't escape someone like that without a detailed plan. That night at home, I practiced my speech one final time in front of the mirror, keeping my voice low so no one could hear. I'd memorized every word, every pause, every emphasis. I knew exactly where I'd look at my mother, exactly which lines would hit hardest, exactly how to pace it for maximum impact. It was 7 minutes long. 7 minutes to undo 17 years of lies. 7 minutes to set myself free. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Patricia. I'm flying in for graduation. Wouldn't miss this for the world. Your mother doesn't know I'm coming. I'm sitting with Quinn's family. Are you ready? As ready as I'll ever be. Good. Because you're about to change your life. And I'm so damn proud of you for having the courage to do it. 2 days before graduation, my mother threw me a small party. Just family and a few church friends. She'd made a cake that said, "Congratulations, Cassidy." And everyone gave me cards with money for college expenses. I smiled and thanked them, putting the cash in my wallet and knowing it was going straight into my escape fund. Uncle Tim gave me a particularly long-winded speech about how proud he was that I'd chosen to stay local, how too many young people thought they were too good for their hometowns, how I was setting an example for other kids. I nodded along, biting my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Grandmother cornered me in the kitchen. Your mother told me you're speaking at graduation, she said. I hope you'll use the opportunity to thank her properly. She sacrificed so much for you and your brother? Oh, I'm definitely going to acknowledge everything she's done, I said truthfully. She patted my cheek, completely missing the double meaning. That's my good girl. I was everyone's good girl. The obedient daughter, the respectful grandchild, the model teenager. They'd painted me into a corner with their expectations and then praised me for staying there. But in 48 hours, I was going to tear that painting to shreds. The night before graduation, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through worst-case scenarios. What if she somehow stopped me from speaking? What if the microphone cut out? What if my courage failed at the last second and I couldn't say the words? No, I'd come too far to back down now. I'd spent months planning, preparing, building my escape route. I wasn't going to let fear stop me when I was this close. My phone lit up with a text from Felix. I'm scared for you. For what happens tomorrow. I'm scared too. But it's the right thing to do. I know. I just wish I could go with you. 4 more years, I promise. I'll come back for you the day you turn 18. What if she makes it impossible? What if she moves or something so you can't find me? She won't. She's too rooted here. This town is her kingdom. She won't leave it. And even if she did, I'd find you. You're my brother. I'd never abandon you. Okay, I trust you. Good luck tomorrow. I'll be watching. I know. Thank you for not telling her. Thank you for protecting me. You've been protecting me our whole lives. It's the least I can do. I set my phone down and finally drifted into uneasy sleep, dreaming of stages and spotlights and my mother's face frozen in shock as her carefully constructed world came crashing down around her. Graduation day dawned clear and bright. The kind of perfect June day that felt almost mocking in its cheerfulness. I woke early, showered, and dressed in the cream dress my mother had bought me. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. Outwardly, I looked like the perfect graduate. Polished, poised, ready to accept congratulations and praise. But inside, I was a coiled spring, ready to release years of suppressed truth. My mother was already up, making a special breakfast. She was in an unusually good mood, humming while she cooked, excited for the day ahead. In her mind, this was her triumph. Her daughter, graduating with honors, staying local, staying under her control. She'd won. She had no idea she'd actually lost months ago. I'm so proud of you, she said, hugging me. My valedictorian. My brilliant girl. I hugged her back, feeling nothing. No warmth, no affection, just a hollow acknowledgement of the gesture. Thanks, Mom. Do you have your speech ready? Memorized, I said truthfully. I can't wait to hear it. I'm sure it'll be beautiful. It'll definitely be memorable, I said. Felix came downstairs, his face carefully neutral. He knew what was coming. He'd read my speech, had made me promise I'd actually go through with it, that I wouldn't lose my nerve at the last second. He was counting on me to do this. Not just for myself, but for both of us, to prove that escape was possible. We ate breakfast mostly in silence. My mother chattered about the ceremony, about who would be there, about the reception. She'd planned at our house afterward. I invited everyone, she said. The whole church community, our neighbors, your teachers, everyone wants to celebrate you. Or they want to celebrate you celebrating me, I thought. They want to praise you for being such a devoted mother. They want to reinforce the lie we've been living. At noon, we headed to the school. The parking lot was packed with families, everyone excited and emotional. Graduates milled around in their caps and gowns, taking photos, signing yearbooks, saying goodbye to teachers. I found Quinn immediately. Ready? She asked quietly. Ready, I confirmed. My family's sitting 5th row, left side. Patricia flew in this morning. She's sitting with us. The second you walk off that stage, we're leaving. My dad has the car running. Thank you. For everything. She hugged me tight. Go burn it all down, Cass. You've earned this. I found Mrs. Hernandez next. She pulled me aside, her expression serious. Last chance to change your mind, she said. I support whatever you decide. But once you say those words, you can't take them back. I don't want to take them back. I want everyone to know the truth. Then speak your truth. I'll be in the back, ready to intervene if anything goes wrong. And Cassidy? I'm so incredibly proud of you. We lined up alphabetically, me near the front as valedictorian. The ceremony began with all the traditional pomp. Processional music, welcome speeches, the principal's address. I sat on stage, my hands folded calmly in my lap, watching my mother in the audience. She was beaming, her phone out, recording everything. She wanted to capture this moment, this pinnacle of her parenting success. She was going to get more than she bargained for. Marcus gave his salutatorian speech first. It was lovely, heartfelt and optimistic, thanking teachers and parents and looking forward to the future. The audience applauded warmly. My mother's smile grew even wider. She was anticipating something similar from me. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of faces. My mother in the 5th row, practically vibrating with pride. Felix next to her, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes meeting mine with understanding. Quinn and her family a few seats over. Patricia's face fierce and proud. Mrs. Hernandez in the back, ready to help if I needed it. I took a deep breath and began. Good afternoon. For those who don't know me, I'm Cassidy Monroe, and I've been your class valedictorian. For the past 4 years, I've maintained a 4.0 GPA, served as student council president, volunteered over 500 hours in our community, and scored in the 99th percentile on my SATs. I'm telling you this not to brag, but to establish credibility for what I'm about to say. I saw my mother lean forward slightly, confused by the opening. This wasn't the gratitude speech she'd expected. When I was 10 years old, my mother told me that dreams were dangerous, that wanting too much would only lead to disappointment. For years, I believed her. I made myself smaller, quieter, more manageable. I learned to want only what she wanted for me. But somewhere along the way, I realized something. Dreams aren't dangerous. The people who try to kill them are. The auditorium was completely silent now. Every eye was on me. In December, I received an acceptance letter from Harvard University. Full scholarship. It was the culmination of 4 years of work, of sacrifice, of pushing myself beyond what I thought I was capable of. It was my dream made real. And 3 months ago, I came home to find my mother burning that acceptance letter in our kitchen trash can. Gasps rippled through the audience. My mother's face went white. She didn't accidentally throw it away. She didn't misplace it. She deliberately, intentionally destroyed it because she couldn't stand the thought of me leaving. Because she doesn't see me as a person with my own dreams and goals. She sees me as an extension of herself, a possession to be controlled and managed. This is inappropriate. My mother's voice rang out. She was standing now, her face twisted with anger. You're lying. You're making this up. I have video evidence, I said calmly, pulling out my phone and holding it up. Security camera footage showing you entering my room, taking the letter from my desk, and burning it while I was at school. I also have copies of the letter that I made before you destroyed the original. Would you like me to play the video for everyone here? She sat down abruptly, her face, now red with humiliation. I continued. My mother told everyone I'd decided to stay local, to go to community college, to stay home with her. But the truth is, I never made that decision. She made it for me. And when I dared to make a different choice, when I dared to want something more, she tried to destroy it. I looked directly at her now. You taught me so much, Mom, though never the lessons you intended. You taught me that control isn't love. You taught me that sacrifice isn't the same as support. You taught me that when someone claims to be protecting you but is actually imprisoning, you have a choice. You can stay and suffocate, or you can fight for your freedom. My voice grew stronger, clearer. I'm standing here today not to humiliate you, though I imagine you feel humiliated. I'm standing here to tell the truth. For myself, for my brother, and for every other kid in this audience who has a parent who loves control more than they love their child's happiness. You deserve to be free. You deserve to chase your dreams. And you are not selfish or ungrateful for wanting a life of your own. I turned back to the full audience. I'm going to Harvard in August. I have a full scholarship, housing arranged with my aunt in Boston, and a support system of people who actually want me to succeed. This isn't rebellion. This isn't me being a difficult teenager. This is me refusing to let anyone, even family, especially family, steal my future. I pulled an envelope from my gown pocket. And Mom, since you wanted to be so involved in my college plans, I wanted to give you this personally. I held it up. It's an invitation to my college graduation. 4 years from now, I'll walk across the stage at Harvard and receive my diploma. You're welcome to attend, but you'll be attending as a guest, not as someone who had any part in getting me there. Because the only person who got me there is me, and the people who actually supported me. I set the envelope on the podium. To my classmates. Congratulations, we made it. Chase your dreams, whatever they are, wherever they lead you. And if anyone tries to stop you, even people who claim they're doing it out of love, remember that real love sets you free. It doesn't bind you. It doesn't control you. It doesn't burn your dreams in a trash can. I looked at my mother one last time. I hope someday you understand that letting go doesn't mean losing someone. It means loving them enough to let them become who they're meant to be. But I'm not waiting around for that understanding. I'm done waiting for your permission to be myself. I stepped back from the microphone to absolute chaos. The audience erupted. Some in applause, some in shocked murmurs, some in outright arguments. My mother was on her feet, screaming something I couldn't hear over the noise. Felix sat frozen next to her, tears streaming down his face. Quinn's family was standing, ready to intercept me. Mrs. Hernandez was already moving toward my mother, along with 2 security guards. The principal looked like he was trying to decide whether to cut the ceremony short or power through. I walked off the stage with my head held high. Marcus caught my arm as I passed. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen," he whispered. I didn't wait for diploma distribution. I didn't stay for the recessional. I walked straight out the side door where Quinn's dad was waiting with his car running, exactly as planned. Quinn grabbed my gown and cap as I got in the car and we pulled away before my mother could reach the parking lot. In the back seat, I finally let myself breathe. My hands were shaking, my heart was racing, but I felt lighter than I had in years. Like I'd been carrying a massive weight and had finally set it down. "You did it," Patricia said from the front seat, turning to look at me with tears in her eyes. "You actually did it. I'm so proud of you I could burst." "Is she going to follow us?" I asked. "Let her try," Quinn's dad said grimly. "You're 18. She has no legal claim to you. And if she tries anything, we call the police." My phone started buzzing, incessantly. Calls from my mother's number, which I declined. Texts from relatives I barely knew. Some supportive, most accusing me of cruelty and disrespect. I turned it off entirely. "We're going straight to my house to get your things," Quinn's dad said. "Then we're driving you to Patricia's tonight instead of tomorrow. The less time she has to track you down, the better." "What about Felix?" I asked, suddenly panicked. "She's going to take this out on him. Mrs. Hernandez is already on it," Patricia assured me. "She's talking to your mother right now, along with the principal and a child welfare advocate. They're making it very clear that any retaliation against Felix will result in an investigation. And Felix has their direct numbers. If anything happens, he calls them immediately." I nodded, trying to trust the plan we'd set up, but the guilt was already creeping in. Guilt for leaving him, for putting him in the line of fire, for saving myself while he had to stay. "He wanted you to do this," Quinn said, reading my thoughts. "He told me last week that watching you escape would give him hope, that knowing it was possible would help him survive the next 4 years. You're not abandoning him, Cass. You're showing him the way out." At Quinn's house, we quickly loaded my belongings into Patricia's rental car. I'd already moved most of my important things over the past few weeks, so it only took 20 minutes to pack everything. Quinn hugged me tight before I left. "Text me when you get to Boston," she said. "And Cass? You're my hero. You know that, right?" "I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of being controlled." "That's exactly what makes you a hero. You fought back when it would have been easier to just accept it. That takes real courage." By evening, we were on the road to Boston. Patricia drove while I sat in the passenger seat, watching my hometown disappear in the rearview mirror. Every mile felt like freedom. Every minute that passed was another minute my mother couldn't reach me. "You know she's going to try to find you," Patricia said. "She's going to call me, show up at my apartment, try to manipulate you into coming back. I know, but I'm 18. She can't force me. She can't legally force you, but she'll try emotionally. She'll say you're tearing the family apart. She'll say Felix needs you. She'll say she's sorry and she's changed. She'll use every tactic she has. And I'll say no to all of it, because I've learned something important. I don't owe her anything. Not my presence, not my forgiveness, not my future. The only thing I owe her is the truth, and I already gave her that." Patricia reached over and squeezed my hand. "You're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to be extraordinary." We drove through the night, stopping only for gas and bathroom breaks. By dawn, we were pulling up to Patricia's apartment in Cambridge, just minutes from Harvard's campus. It was a cozy 2-bedroom in an old brownstone filled with books and plants and artwork from Patricia's travels. "This is your room?" she said, showing me a small but bright space with a desk, a bed, and a huge window overlooking the street. Make it yours. Stay as long as you need. There's no pressure, no strings attached. This is your home now. I set my bags down and sat on the bed, suddenly overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. I'd given the speech. I'd told the truth. I'd escaped. I was here in Boston, free. And then I started crying. Not sad tears, but the kind of crying that comes when you've been holding everything together for so long that when you finally let go, it all comes pouring out at once. Patricia sat next to me and held me while I sobbed, not saying anything, just being present. I'm so tired. I finally said, I'm so tired of fighting. Then rest, she said simply. You're safe now. You don't have to fight anymore. You can just be. Over the next few days, I did rest. I slept for hours, catching up on months of stress-induced insomnia. I ate Patricia's home cooking. I walked around Cambridge, exploring the campus I'd be attending in 2 months. I started to believe slowly that this was real, that I'd actually done it, that I'd actually escaped. My phone, I'd turned it back on after a day, was flooded with messages. Most were hateful texts from relatives, accusing me of cruelty and ingratitude, but mixed in were messages of support. From Quinn, from Marcus and Jade, from teachers who'd known what I was dealing with, from classmates who'd found the courage to share their own stories of controlling parents, and one message from an unexpected source. Cassidy, this is your father. I watched the video of your speech. Someone posted it online. It's going viral. I need you to know that I believe you. I believe everything you said about your mother because I lived with her too. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you from her, but I'm here now if you want me to be. No pressure. Just, I'm here. Dad, I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it, to reject this man who'd left us 7 years ago. But another part, the part that was trying to build a new life, recognized that maybe, just maybe he deserved a chance to explain himself. I typed back, can we talk? Not now. But eventually, I have a lot of questions. His response was immediate. Whenever you're ready. I'll wait as long as it takes. I'm proud of you, Cassidy. Prouder than I have words for. The video of my speech had indeed gone viral. By the end of the first week, it had millions of views across multiple platforms. News outlets were covering it. Think pieces were being written about controlling parents and educational abuse. My story had become larger than just my story. It had become a conversation about family, dynamics, about what children owe their parents, about the difference between protection and control. Some people praised me as brave. Others called me vindictive and cruel, but I'd expected that. I'd known that telling the truth would be polarizing. Some people couldn't handle the idea that parents could be wrong, that family loyalty had limits, that sometimes the healthiest thing you could do was leave. Mrs. Hernandez called to check on me. How are you holding up with all the attention? It's weird, I admitted, but also validating. Seeing all these people share their own stories, realizing how many kids are dealing with parents like my mom, it makes me feel less alone. It also makes what you did even more important. You gave voice to something a lot of people experience but don't know how to articulate. That's powerful, Cassidy. How's Felix? Her pause told me everything. He's okay. Your mother tried to take his phone, tried to isolate him, but we intervened. The school is monitoring the situation closely. He knows he can call me anytime. I should have found a way to take him with me. You couldn't. He's 14. The law wouldn't have allowed it, but you did the next best thing. You showed him that leaving is possible, that survival is possible. That's a gift, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding. I read some of the online comments about my speech. Most were supportive, but the critical ones were vicious. They called me ungrateful, spoiled, dramatic. They said I'd destroyed my mother's reputation over a college acceptance letter, that I was ruining her life for attention. But mixed in with the hate were other comments. Hundreds of them, thousands, from people who'd lived through similar situations. People whose parents had sabotaged college applications, burned scholarship letters, deliberately derailed their children's dreams to keep them close. People who'd escaped like I had, or who were still trapped and found hope in my story. One comment stood out. I'm 47 years old. My mother burned my college acceptance letter when I was 18, just like yours did. But I didn't have your courage. I stayed. I went to community college like she wanted. I got a job in town. I married someone she approved of. And I've spent 30 years wondering what my life could have been. Thank you for being brave enough to leave. Thank you for showing young people that they don't have to accept this. You're saving lives. I read that comment 3 times, letting it sink in. My speech hadn't just been about me. It had been about everyone who'd ever been told their dreams were too big, their ambitions too selfish, their desire for independence too threatening. It had been about giving permission. To myself, yes, but also to everyone watching. To choose themselves. 2 weeks after graduation, the invitation I'd left on the podium, the one inviting my mother to my college graduation 4 years from now, appeared online. Someone had photographed it and posted it. The internet had thoughts. The invitation itself was simple but pointed. You're invited to attend the college graduation of Cassidy and Monroe, Harvard University class of 2028. This invitation serves as proof that the dreams you tried to burn survived, that the daughter you tried to control became her own person anyway, that love cannot exist where control reigns. Attendance is optional. Your approval is no longer required. The photo went even more viral than the speech video. People called it savage, poetic, perfect. Some said I was being unnecessarily cruel. Others said it was the most powerful statement about parental control they'd ever seen. I didn't care what they thought. The invitation hadn't been for them. It had been for my mother. Yes, but more importantly, it had been for me. A promise to myself that I would not only survive her attempts to destroy my dreams, but I would thrive despite them. That in 4 years, I would stand on another stage and prove that she'd failed to break me. Patricia came home from work one evening to find me staring at my laptop, reading comments. She closed it gently. Don't do this to yourself. Don't let internet strangers define your experience. They're not all strangers. Some of them are people who understand. People who've been through this. I know. But you also need to protect your peace. You just escaped. You need time to heal. Not time to relitigate your trauma in the comments section. She was right. I closed the laptop and didn't open it again for 3 days. Instead, I focused on building my new life. I got a part-time job at a bookstore near campus. I attended Harvard's orientation sessions. I met with an academic advisor to plan my course schedule. I started seeing the therapist Patricia had found for me, a kind woman named Dr. Williams who specialized in family trauma. Tell me about the speech, Dr. Williams said during our first session. Everyone wants to know about the speech. I'm not everyone. I'm asking because I want to understand what it meant to you. Not to the internet, not to your mother, to you. I thought about it. It meant taking back my narrative. My mother had been writing my story for 17 years. Who I was, what I wanted, what I was capable of. The speech was me saying, actually, here's the real story. Here's what really happened. And you don't get to revise it anymore. That's powerful. How did it feel? Terrifying, liberating, necessary. Like jumping off a cliff and growing wings on the way down. And now? Now that you've landed? Now I have to figure out who I am without her. I've spent so long reacting to her control, planning my escape, protecting myself. Now that I'm free, I don't know who I'm supposed to be. You don't have to be anyone, except yourself. But figuring out who that is takes time. Be patient with the process. Over the following weeks, I started to understand what Dr. Williams meant. Without my mother's constant presence, without the need to be perpetually on guard, I started to discover parts of myself I'd suppressed. I liked jazz music. I enjoyed cooking when it wasn't a chore demanded of me. I was actually pretty funny when I wasn't using all my energy to manage someone else's emotions. I also started to grieve. Not for my mother, but for the mother I'd never had. For the childhood I'd deserved but hadn't received. For all the years I'd spent trying to earn love that should have been freely given. This is normal, Dr. Williams assured me when I broke down crying in her office. You're mourning what should have been. That's part of healing. Felix and I texted regularly, though I could tell from his messages that things at home were tense. My mother had apparently become even more controlling with him after I left, terrified of losing both her children. But he was also learning to set boundaries, to push back in small ways, to protect himself until he was old enough to leave too. She keeps asking if I've talked to you, he texted one night, wanting to know where you are, what you're doing. I tell her I don't know. It's easier that way. I'm sorry you're dealing with this alone. I'm not alone. Mrs. Hernandez checks on me every week. And knowing you made it out gives me hope. 4 more years and I'm free too. 4 more years. I promise I'll help you leave. I know you will. You always keep your promises. Summer passed in a blur of preparation and healing. I worked at the bookstore, saved money, prepared for Harvard. Patricia became the mother figure I'd never had. Supportive but not suffocating. Proud but not possessive, giving me space to figure out who I was becoming. In late July, I received an unexpected package. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside was a letter. 5 pages, front and back, filled with her distinctive slanted script. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won. Cassidy, I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't even know if you'll read it. But I need to say these things, even if only for myself. What you did at graduation was cruel. You humiliated me in front of everyone we know. You made me look like a monster. You destroyed my reputation in our community. People I've known for years won't speak to me now. They look at me differently. They judge me. But these past 2 months have forced me to face some uncomfortable truths. Your Aunt Patricia called me last week. She told me that you weren't lying, that everything you said in your speech was accurate. She told me about the security camera footage, about the copies of the acceptance letter you'd made, about all the planning you'd done to escape me. Escape. That's the word she used. Like I was a prison guard instead of your mother. I've spent weeks trying to understand how you could see me that way, how you could believe I didn't have your best interests at heart. I burned that letter because Harvard would have ruined you, because leaving would have put you in danger. Spiritual danger, moral danger, because I was protecting you. But Patricia asked me something that I can't stop thinking about. Protecting her from what? From success? From opportunity? From becoming the person she was meant to be? And I don't have a good answer. I burned that letter because I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of you changing. Afraid of being alone. I told myself it was about protecting you, but it was really about protecting myself from the pain of letting you go. Your grandmother raised me the same way I raised you. She controlled everything. Who I dated, where I went to college, what career I chose. I thought I was supposed to do the same with you. I thought that's what good mothers did. But watching you leave, watching you choose yourself even when it meant losing your family, it's made me question everything. I don't know if I can change. I don't know if I even want to. But I am sorry I burned your letter. I'm sorry I tried to steal your future. And I'm sorry I couldn't be the mother you needed. I won't contact you again unless you want me to. This is my goodbye, I suppose. Unless someday you decide you want a relationship. But I won't hold my breath. Your mother, I read the letter 3 times, analyzing every word, looking for manipulation, for guilt trips, for the tactics she'd always used. And they were there. The self-pity, the attempt to justify her actions, the framing of herself as a victim of her own upbringing. But there was also something I'd never heard from her before. Accountability. Not complete, not perfect, but a crack in the armor of her absolute certainty that she was always right. I showed the letter to Dr. Williams at our next session. What do you think? She asked after reading it. I think she's starting to understand what she did, but I also think she's a long way from actually changing. Acknowledging you were wrong is step 1. Actually doing the work to be different is much harder. Do you want a relationship with her? I don't know. Part of me misses having a mom, but I don't miss having her as a mom, if that makes sense. I miss the idea of a mother who supports and encourages me. I've never actually had that from her. Would you respond to the letter? I don't think so. At least not now. Maybe in a few years when I'm more stable, when Harvard is behind me and I've proven to myself that I can succeed without her. Maybe then I'll be ready to see if she's actually changed. That's very mature. You're allowed to take all the time you need to heal before deciding if you want her in your life. August arrived, and with it, the start of my new life at Harvard. Move-in day was emotional. Patricia helping me set up my dorm room, Felix video calling to see everything. Quinn driving up from Connecticut where she was attending Yale. My father even showed up, awkward and hesitant but present. I know I don't have the right to be here, he said, but I wanted to help you move in, if that's okay. It was strange seeing him after so many years. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes were still the same green as mine and Felix's. It's okay, I said. Thank you for coming. We were still figuring out our relationship, still navigating the complicated waters of reconnection after years of absence. But he was trying. That had to count for something. As I unpacked boxes in my dorm room, I realized something. I was surrounded by people who actually wanted me to succeed. Patricia, beaming with pride. My father, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs. Quinn, making my bed with hospital corners. Felix, even through a phone screen, excited for me. This was what real family looked like. Not people who bound you with obligation and guilt, but people who celebrated your freedom and your growth. The first semester of Harvard was everything I'd dreamed and more. The classes were challenging but exhilarating. The students were brilliant and diverse. The campus was beautiful. I joined the debate team, started volunteering with a literacy program, made friends who'd never known the controlled, performative version of me. I was becoming myself for the first time. The real Cassidy, not the one I'd had to be to survive my mother. In October, the video of my graduation speech resurfaced online as part of a larger conversation about educational abuse. A major news network wanted to interview me. I declined. I'd said everything I needed to say on that graduation stage. I didn't need to relive it for entertainment or clicks. But I did write an essay about my experience for the Harvard Crimson, the student newspaper. I wrote about controlling parents, about the courage it takes to leave, about the importance of support systems. The essay went viral too, reprinted in dozens of other college papers, shared widely on social media. And somewhere in our small hometown, I knew my mother was reading it, watching me thrive, watching me succeed without her. That was the revenge I'd planned all along. Not hurting her, but showing her that she'd failed to break me, that her control had limits, that I was bigger than her attempts to make me small. In December, Felix called me. She started therapy, he said. Actual therapy, not church counseling. She told me she's trying to understand why she is the way she is. That's good. But Felix, don't let that manipulate you into thinking things will immediately get better. Therapy helps, but real change takes years. I know, I'm not expecting miracles, but it's something. And honestly, living with her is easier now than it was before you left. She's less controlling. Like she realized if she doesn't change, she'll lose me too. You'll still leave when you're 18, right? Even if she improves? Yeah. Because even if she changes, I need to be my own person. Away from here. Away from her. You taught me that. 4 years. Then you're free. 3.5 now. I'm counting down. That Christmas, Patricia, my father, Felix, who'd gotten permission for a week-long visit, and I celebrated together in Patricia's apartment. My mother wasn't there. Felix had told her about his plans to visit me, and she'd surprisingly let him go without. Much fight. Another sign that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand that control only pushed people away. We cooked together, exchanged modest gifts, watched terrible holiday movies. It was the first Christmas I'd ever enjoyed. The first one where I didn't have to perform or manage someone else's emotions. It was just nice. Simple. Real. This is what family should feel like. Felix said on his last night before going home. Not stressful, not performative. Just people who like each other choosing to spend time together. Yeah, I agreed. This is what we deserved all along. Time passed. Semesters blurred together. I thrived academically, made deep friendships, even started dating someone. A philosophy. Major named Alex, who thought my graduation speech was the most philosophically sound act of rebellion he'd ever seen. I went to therapy regularly, processing years of trauma, learning to trust people, learning to recognize healthy relationships from toxic ones. Felix and I stayed in close contact. I watched him grow from a scared 14-year-old to a confident young man who'd learned from my example. He applied to colleges in secret, got accepted to several good schools, and made his own escape plan. When he turned 18, he left home much more quietly than I had. No dramatic speech, just a packed bag and a note saying he was moving in with our father for the summer. Before college, our mother didn't try to stop him. She'd learned, finally, that control only worked on people who were willing to be controlled. And then somehow it was May of my senior year at Harvard. Graduation was approaching. The invitation I'd left on that podium 4 years ago hung on my dorm room wall, a reminder of everything I'd survived and overcome. Are you going to send her an actual invitation? Patricia asked when she came to visit. Or was that podium invitation symbolic? I don't know yet, I admitted. Part of me wants her to see me graduate, to see that I made it despite everything she did. But another part of me doesn't want her there at all, doesn't want her presence tainting this achievement. It's your choice. No one can tell you the right answer. A week before graduation, I received another letter from my mother. This one was shorter, more direct. Cassidy, I saw that you're graduating soon. Congratulations. I know that means nothing coming from me, but I mean it. I'm not asking to attend. I know I haven't earned that right, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Not the way I used to be proud. Proud of controlling you, proud of keeping you small. I'm proud of who you've become despite me. Because of leaving me. Therapy has helped me understand a lot of things. It's helped me see that I treated you the way my mother treated me, and she treated me the way her mother treated her. It's a cycle that goes back generations. A cycle of control disguised as love. I'm trying to break that cycle. For Felix, for myself, and in some way, for you. Even though you're not here to see it, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. And I'm sorry. I'll watch your graduation online if it's streamed. From a distance. Where I belong. Your mother? I read the letter sitting on my dorm room floor, tears streaming down my face. Not because I was sad, but because this letter represented something I'd never thought. I'd get genuine acknowledgement that she'd been wrong. Not just wrong about the letter, but wrong about everything. Wrong about how she'd treated me. Wrong about what love looked like. What are you going to do? Alex asked, sitting beside me. I'm going to graduate, I said. I'm going to walk across that stage and accept my diploma. And maybe someday when I'm ready, I'll talk to her. Really talk to her. See if she's actually changed or if this is just another manipulation. But not today. Not today. Today, this graduation is mine. 4 years ago, I told her she could attend as a guest, not as someone who had any part in my success. That's still true. This achievement is mine, built on my own work, supported by people who actually cared about my well-being. She doesn't get to claim any part of it. Graduation day arrived. The ceremony was held in Harvard Yard under a perfect blue sky. I wore the traditional cap and gown, my honors cords draped around my neck. Patricia was in the audience, crying happy tears. My father sat next to her, beaming with pride. Felix had come up from his college in Pennsylvania. Quinn had driven from New York, where she was in law school. Dr. Williams was there. Mrs. Hernandez had flown in from my hometown. The people who'd actually helped me get here were all present. The person who'd tried to stop me was watching from her living room 2 states away. And that felt right. That felt like justice. When my name was called, I walked across the stage to thunderous applause. I shook the dean's hand, accepted my diploma, and looked out at the sea of faces. Somewhere in that crowd were the people who'd saved me when I couldn't save myself. The people who'd shown me what real support looked like. And in that moment, I understood something fundamental. Revenge wasn't about making someone suffer. It was about succeeding so completely, so thoroughly that their attempts to destroy you became irrelevant. It was about building a life so good that you no longer needed their approval or their acknowledgement. My mother had tried to burn my future, but I'd risen from those ashes and built something even better than what she'd tried to destroy. I'd built myself. That was the ultimate revenge. After the ceremony, my chosen family gathered for lunch. We laughed and told stories and celebrated not just my graduation, but everything it represented. Freedom, resilience, the triumph of choosing yourself when everyone else wanted you to be smaller. Felix pulled me aside at one point. Thank you, he said, for going first, for showing me it was possible. You would have figured it out on your own eventually. Maybe, but you made it easier. You made it less scary. You proved that leaving didn't mean losing everything. Sometimes it meant gaining yourself. That night, I posted a single photo on social media, me in my cap and gown, holding my diploma, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. The caption was simple. 4 years ago, someone tried to burn my future. Today, I graduated from Harvard University with honors. This is what rising from the ashes looks like. This is what choosing yourself creates. To everyone who helped me get here, thank you. To everyone still trapped by controlling parents, escape is possible. Freedom is worth fighting for. And you are stronger than you think. The post went viral within hours. Thousands of comments from people who remembered my graduation speech, who'd followed my journey, who'd been inspired by my story. But I didn't read most of them. I'd learned that lesson. My story was mine, not the internet's. My triumph was mine, not content for strangers to consume. I turned off my phone and spent the evening with the people who mattered, celebrating the life I'd built despite everything. I was working at a nonprofit focused on helping teenagers escape abusive home situations. When I received a Facebook friend request from my mother, I stared at it for a long time before accepting. Her profile had changed. The performative posts about family and faith were gone, replaced by occasional shares of articles about parenting and therapy. She looked older in her profile picture, but also somehow lighter, less rigid. A message came through. I know I said I wouldn't contact you unless you wanted me to, but I wanted you to know that Felix graduated high school this week. He's going to college in California. He's finally free too. I'm glad he's free, and I'm glad you let him go. I didn't have much choice. If I'd tried to stop him, he would have left anyway. You both taught me that control only works until it doesn't. That must have been hard to learn. It was. It still is. But Cassidy, can I ask you something? Would you be willing to meet sometime? Not now, not soon, but someday? I'm not asking to be your mother again. I'm just asking if there's any possibility of knowing who you've become. I thought about it for a long time before responding. Maybe. Someday. When I'm ready. I need more time to heal. To build my life. To be sure I'm strong enough to have you in it without losing myself again. I understand. And I'll wait. However long it takes. One more thing. That invitation I left on the podium 4 years ago? I meant every word. You were invited to my graduation. Not because I wanted you there, but because I wanted to. Prove you couldn't destroy me. I graduated despite you, not because of you. And I need you to understand that distinction before we can have any kind of relationship. I do understand. Finally. And I am proud of who you've become. The real you. Not the version I tried to create. I set my phone down and looked around my apartment. My own place now, in Boston, filled, with books and plants and evidence of a life I'd built entirely on my own terms. Photos of people who actually loved me covered the walls. My Harvard diploma hung in a place of honor, a reminder of what I'd fought for and won. On my desk was the cream-colored graduation invitation I'd left on that podium 5 years ago. It was framed now, a piece of art that represented everything I'd overcome. The words were as powerful now as they'd been then. This invitation serves as proof that the dreams you tried to burn survived, that the daughter you tried to control became her own person anyway, that love cannot exist where control reigns. And beneath it, I'd added a new line in my own handwriting. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about building something so beautiful that the people who tried to tear you down can only watch in awe as you rise. I didn't know if I'd ever have a real relationship with my mother. I didn't know if she'd truly changed or if this was just another phase. But I knew that I didn't need her approval anymore. I didn't need her love. I'd found those things in other people, in healthy relationships, in myself. The revenge I'd planned 5 years ago, standing on that stage telling the truth, inviting her to witness my success, had worked better than I'd imagined, not because it had destroyed her, but because it had freed me. It had shown me that I was stronger than her control, bigger than her limitations, more resilient than her attempts to break me. I'd sent her an invitation to my graduation, and she'd stayed away. But in doing so, she'd given me the greatest gift possible. The freedom to succeed, without her shadow looming over me. The space to become who I was meant to be without her trying to reshape me into her image. That was the ultimate revenge. Not hurting her, but becoming so completely myself that her opinion no longer mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from Felix. Just moved into my dorm at USC. Officially free. Thank you for showing me how to leave. Proud of you. Now go build your own life. Fall in love with who you are without anyone telling you who to be. That's the plan. Love you, sis. Love you too. I looked out my window at the Boston skyline, the city that had become my home, and felt something I'd spent my whole childhood chasing. Peace. Not because my relationship with my mother was resolved, but because I'd learned I didn't need it to be. I'd learned that family wasn't just the people you were born to. It was the people who chose you, who supported you, who wanted you to fly instead of clipping your wings. My mother had tried to burn my future, but from those ashes, I'd built something she could never touch. A life that was entirely, authentically, unshakably mine. And really, that was the sweetest revenge of all.